Hi, everybody. Welcome. And I'm so glad to see you all here. There is a link in the chat that will that you can click on for StreamYard. So if you comment on Facebook, we can see your comments in our platform. That would be awesome. So welcome. And sorry, one second. Okay, so I want to thank you all for joining us today for this very, very important topic. We will have some time for Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat as each speaker is talking about their organization and the details around what we're all doing to combat veteran suicide. So my name is Deana Mitchell, and I am the founder and executive director of the Realize Foundation. And our mission is to reduce suicide statistics across humanity. In October, we launched the SaveALifeChallenge, which is all about having the conversation about suicide and mental health. Our theory, instead of targeting only the humans struggling with ideation, we spread awareness and education to all humans. So when the person struggling is ready to have the conversation, there are people around them that will understand how to listen and be supportive. So in turn, we stop the stigma. This would cause people to get help when they need it and ultimately reduce the suicide statistics. You can learn more at our website, and it'll be posted in this post at realizefoundation.org, or you can just Google Save a Life Challenge and you will find us there. So today, I'm so excited. We have guests who are all entrenched in the veteran community and know firsthand how dire the situation is and has been for some time. So I'm going to introduce them to you and let them tell you about what they're doing in their world. And first, I would like to introduce Mr. Clint Bruce. He is a former Special Ops Officer, a board member for Americans Warrior Partnership, and Operation Deep Dive.
Yeah, well, hey, it's great to be on the call with whoever the audience is and the listeners, but certainly with people who are kind of in the fight. You know, I have these three beautiful daughters, and one of the things I tell them all the time is like, hey, girls, it comes down to words, work, and wins. And the truth is serendipity has much more to do with success than most people think, but you got to put your words to work to win in the first place. And so for me to be on a call with just people who have thrown their hat in the ring and put their words to work, that's a tremendous honor for me. But like I said, my name is Clint Bruce. My background briefly, not that it matters, but it'll just affirm that I believe everything I'm telling you, and I live it somewhat. I grew up in Texas, played football at the United States Naval Academy, was fortunate to be part of a really good team, had an opportunity to play in the NFL. Nobody knows that because I played the same position as Ray Lewis, and he's pretty good. I remember being at practice one day going, it might be easier to become a Navy SEAL than to beat out Ray Lewis. And so I did, and it was. And so I went through SEAL training in the late 90s, made it, checked into SEAL Team 5, left, went back out in the NFL briefly, and then really just realized everything I loved about football was times 10 in military service and in the special operations community. And not unique to the special operations community. One of the great privileges of my life would be to interoperate with some of the conventional units and just the courage and valor that I found there in the men and women that served all over. It was pretty humbling and amazing. When I left service, I came home and went into business, and I noticed this very disappointing and frustrating trend to just not do Memorial Day the way I needed America to do Memorial Day as a guy who had lost my friends and knew I was going to lose more. And that resulted in starting an organization called Carry the Load, which exists to restore the true meaning of Memorial Day and extend that branch of recognition to all the sacrificial services throughout the month of May, culminating in the military specifically on Memorial Day. And in May, we have these wonderful, Cemetery of West Point down to Dallas, Seattle to Dallas, Minneapolis to Dallas, and for 24/7, people are on the road walking towards Dallas, asking a question, hey, who are you carrying? And just listening as people tell us people that they miss. Because the calculus for me with Memorial Day is, my friend thought you were worth dying for, and they didn't even know you. you don't remember them on the day you're supposed to. It makes them die do not make sense to me, and I need that to make sense to me. So I was part of that for a while, and kind of turned that leadership over to people who I think were probably more better and talented than I am for the season we were in. And I always feel like the long-term solution often is just work, and I wanted to get to work building businesses that allow veterans to transition and their families to transition more effectively, to win the war on veteran suicide with the power of daily wins and a good day's work. And in the process of doing that, met Jim Lorraine, who is the chairman of America's Warrior Partnership, and learned specifically about Operation Deep Dive, which I'm excited to share about here in a moment. And went on the board for America's Warrior Partnership, as well as down here in Dallas, there's an organization called the Center for Brain Health and the Brain Performance Institute. And between those two organizations, I felt like I could be a resource as we attacked this concept called suicide from a purpose and an integration and a reintegration perspective, and then from a brain science perspective. And one of the things you can't do, and everybody on the phone is a problem solver who's either watching or about to contribute, but you can't solve the problem unless you know what the problem was. And one of the things Operation Deep Dive, why I was so attracted to it, is through imaging and communication, we can understand so much more about the brain than we could even 10 years ago. But if we're dealing with inaccurate information, we're going to continue to make incorrect or incomplete solutions. And the way that suicide was being quantified was inaccurate. And it was no one's intention and no one's desire and no one's design to be inaccurate. But if you're not dealing with good intel, you're not going to fight a good fight. And so we wanted to broaden the aperture, partner with Bristol Myers Squibb. They just had a heart for this out of the gate. And Operation Deep Dive became a 4-year study with the goal of examining how the deceased veterans and being one of the things I love so much of what you said with the Realize Foundation is you spread the net across humanity. And if we look at our communities that return to from service as a net, the net can only be as effective as the mesh is tight, right? And when you have someone who's falling, the person who's falling knows they're falling, and self-stoppage is a hard thing when you're falling. So it's the net that saves you. And weaving together better awareness, creating better programs to create a finer mesh and a tighter net. When the falling person falls, it's easier to catch them, and it's easier to detect them, and it's easier to create these programs that stop that fall. And that's really what Operation Deep Dive was built to do. And America's Warrior Partnership is built to mesh together better community integration and help people understand what it's like to be reintegrating as a veteran or to reintegrate a veteran. And Deep Dive was committed to giving us better data about that. And one of the things we've been able to do through Operation Deep Dive is we're actually able, for the first time ever, we've been able to obtain all death records from 2014 to 2019 from Alabama, Montana, Massachusetts, Florida, and Minnesota. And these records are provided to DoD for verification for service members and benefits. And what it allows us to do is really understand or begin to project, hey, what's the actual number? Anybody who's been in a fight knows that the number of adversaries is a critical number. You know, I can't tell you times there's either not enough intel for target or the intel is inaccurate, but when you get accurate intel, you can fight well. We're trying to really better quantify, and so we define, obviously the number of reported suicide is somewhat known, but when you begin to look at the totality of suicide with what we call non-natural cause of death, which we would define as overdose, asphyxiation, accidental gunshot, drowning, suicide by law enforcement, or high-speed single driver accident within the last 24 months, the number becomes frankly terrifying. And one of the things Operation Deep Dive was built to do is get a better handle on that number by having conversations with the families of veterans that we've lost and determine the cause of death and whether or not that is more accurately attributed to suicide than it is these just attributed deaths. And then we know what the problem is, and then we can go about solving it. So the biggest way that people can help Operation Deep Dive is really Operation Deep Dive. The more we can talk, it's our goal, just like yours, our goal for every citizen in the U.S. to know about this resource and opportunity and to move from suicide prevention to awareness and action. And really do that, we have to have better information. So my ask would be is go to americaswarriorpartnership.org/deep dive and And I'll send it to you so you can spread that out. But if you can help create better activation about the veteran that you've lost, and if it was not suicide as we understand it, but it was perhaps one of these others: overdose, asphyxiation, accidental gunshot drowning, suicide by cop, high speed or single driver accident in the last 24 months, we would desperately appreciate the opportunity to visit with you. That's a lot. That's a lot, real quick. But I want to be a steward of everyone's time, and I'm excited to hear about what Heather and Drew and Jarrod are doing.
Yes.
But I wanted at a really high level talk about that.
Thank you so much, Clint. It's so important. As I told you, I saw one of your colleagues speaking on Fox News about this, and I was just like, we have to have this conversation, because it's devastating enough to think about the numbers we know are real, and to think that they're probably bigger is just heartbreaking to me. So
yeah, I would say that's one of the things. We lost a dear friend, a really wonderful Navy SEAL named Tyler Black the other day, and it was a post-surgical event, and all of us were sitting around at his memorial going, how sad, how frustrating is it when we learn that we lost a friend, and the first thing we go to, it's like, hey, did they end their own life? And then you hear this kind of nebulous thing, and you want to believe it, but you've lost so many friends you don't know, and we have to stab a needle in the heart of the reasons people think they don't count anymore, because they do.
Yes, it's true. I think there's so many people in the world right now, veteran and everyone else, that has those thoughts right now.
Well, I don't think the causation is that different. I think, regardless of demographic that we're talking about here, I think that the causation of suicide is not that distinct. I think, and that's why I commingle veterans and athletes, and because it's lions and tigers, and there's something that happens. Like, Drew, I love looking at your backdrop, and one of the things I tell people is the water, wilderness, and wild things make us feel small but not insignificant. And when you can reconcile yourself against something that's wild and big, or the water, then it doesn't diminish you, and it doesn't diminish your problems, but it does put it back in perspective. And the genesis of all good things is this: talking about it with people that care about it more than just use words.
Thank you so much. I agree with 100%. And for me personally, nature is my happy place, so that resonates a lot. So I would like to introduce to you all Jarrod H. Smith, and he is with the Commissioned Officer's Guide. And he believes we should assemble your power team to win throughout military service, and more importantly, in the life you'll live far beyond. So Jarrod, tell us more about what you are up to.
Deana, thanks so much. Really a privilege to be here today with this fantastic group of people, and all of you out there, thanks for joining us. So as Deana said, I do claim myself to be the Commissioned Officer's Guide, and there's a very particular reason behind that I'll get to in a moment. I'm entering what we call in service the military transition. I'm about 2 years out from my retirement off of active duty. And with that said, nothing I say here today is representative of the U.S. government, the U.S. Navy, or the DOD. This is all me and me alone. But something happened in May of this year, Memorial Day, and I happened to get on Facebook, and I saw the 22 push-up challenge to bring awareness to the veteran suicide crisis, and that prompted me to act. Now, I had come across or been informed about this travesty about a year ago in October, November timeframe. It occurred, or I found out about it, and I was actually going to do a research paper on it, and I didn't get to, but it was on my mind. And what I come to determine was ask myself a question: Are we doing transition right? And I had an experience a few years ago where I was assigned as a transition assistance program officer in one of my commands, and I helped 10 officers either transition or separate out and or retire out of service. And 9 out of the 10, it was a really, really hard thing for them. It was too hard. It shouldn't have been as hard as it appeared to be from from my angle. But at that time, I was part of the problem too, because I was there to make sure that they checked all the blocks to process out of the service, right? And that experience, reflecting back on that 5 years later, led me to create this idea of the Commissioned Officers Guide. In that same assignment, a few years later, but in the same location, I had my own challenge with a mental health problem based on something that happened at work. And so, fortunately, I was able to utilize the systems that were in place to help pull me through that. But it took a couple of years. And I think I had to do it in quiet. And like Deanna said, and like Clint said a while ago, we've got to open up communication about this. We've got to talk about this. And I believe that the veteran suicide crisis and most any veteran challenges that the veteran community has begins on active duty, and it begins early. So what I've done with the Commissioned Officers Guide is built out a model that I think we need to be following in order to make sure that we are serving this nation to the best of our capacity to do so by fully utilizing the medical system early and often in service, and not pushing that away or avoiding the medical treatment facility to get the help we need, physical or mental or emotional, early on. Because it took me over 17 years to figure out how to use the medical system, which I finally did earlier this year and got treatment for sleep apnea. Whenever I got diagnosed with that in February and got the equipment I needed in March, it's changed my life since then. And I think us not utilizing the medical system early and often throughout service is a detriment to our service, to those that we're serving in uniform, as well as the citizenry that depend on us. And it's a disservice to ourselves. So we got to take care of our health. That's first. The second is this idea of the identity. It's the second pillar, I call it, identity, where our identity is after our basic training pipelines, commissioned or enlisted, are tied up in the rank and the weapons platform that we employ, and perhaps even the service branch with the oaths and mottos that we use to keep us driven to serve the nation's highest calling. Right? We have to get that back. You definitely need to get your own self-identity back well ahead of this military transition period, which I call the transition battle. And for many, that starts after 5 years in. For others, it starts at 25 or 30 plus years in. Regardless, we need our identity, right? We got to know what it is we're here on this planet for. And I would argue to say that it's not just to die for the country. There's more to it than that. And that leads into post-service life. And if you haven't found your identity, you're going to have some real challenges in that capitalistic economy that we defended. So that's second. And then the third pillar that I reference is what I call the military family wealth picture, or military family finance. And as many of us know, there's plenty of challenges in that space. And that's just not specific to the military family either, because as we know, our society at large, people are struggling, and it's based on a lack of education on the systems that we live and work in. From the education system that did not give us the necessary skill sets we need to understand the tax code and pay and the banking system and all of these, the retirement systems that we're using, like all these different things that we're not informed about, but we're just kind of told to go along with the herd. That's a challenge as well during transition, because if you're not financially set, then you've got yourself in a position where you're having to get a job to keep a roof over the head and food on the table. You're transitioning or retiring, either or. You've got to a standard of living that you want to maintain, and then all of a sudden you need a job, right? So those three pillars, health, status, and wealth, I say all reside on a strong foundation of relationships. And through my personal experience over the last 18 years, I've done a terrible job at keeping relationships with people from my commands and my past. And I think that had to do a little bit with the health challenge that I've just overcome this year. I started mentoring a junior officer who was still in the training pipelines about a year ago, and he sent me a list of 10 questions, and one of them that he asked me, I guess this was March or April time frame. He said, what's the importance of maintaining relationships throughout your career? And I kind of smiled because, a few years ago, I would have had a completely different answer. But today I'm like, it's crucial. It's crucial. It's relationships are what life is all about. So we've got this culture where we're focused on the little mission of the day, right? Of the current staff or operational assignment that is our entire world, where we're spending 10, 12, 14 hours a day trying to be ready to go fight that next war. But we're doing it at the expense of ourselves. And then we're sending our transitioning military members back into society not prepared because they get caught in the transition assistance program trap, or too much to do too soon. It takes typically multiple years, if not decades, of planning to really get it right. And we've got one shot to get it right. Okay. So the Commissioned Officer's Guide is building a superhighway for the military transition. And the pre-deployment preparations, planning, and workups for that inevitable transition battle begin when we leave the training pipelines. And if you didn't start then, it starts now. That way we can prepare our active duty service members to go back to society and contribute to it, knowing why they're here and what they're doing, and have a goal for the rest of their life, as opposed to simply serving the nation, because I believe there's more. So with that said, I will stop there and turn it back over to Deana. Thank you.
Thank you, Jarrod. That was enlightening, because for those of us who haven't been in the military, I have many family members that have been in the military, but not myself, even though I almost joined a few times. It's enlightening to hear your journey and how sleep apnea, nobody would think that would be tied to suicide, but I can tell you from not being able to sleep for years and years that has a huge impact on your mental health and your overall health. And so it is a big deal. I'm so glad you got help with that. So sometimes it's a smaller problem that manifests itself into what we're talking about here.
And to add, though, it did lead to chronic exhaustion and severe anxiety. And then that has a detrimental effect on relationships at home and at work.
Yes.
So that's why it's critical to use medical early and often. It's a good medical system, but our culture says, suck it up, buttercup, tough it out. You don't need to go to medical. We got work to do. And I believe that's the wrong approach. It's not taking care of our people.
I agree very much. So I would like to introduce everybody to Drew Robertson with Mattersville Vets and PAC 22. And his mission is providing a safe community for veterans to thrive into a sustainable tomorrow. So kind of a continuation of what Jarrod was talking about.
Yeah. So for me, Mattersville started back in 2013 when a friend who I wasn't even actually speaking with at the time, because he had a lot of episodes that kind of led us to become estranged for the last 6 months. But he took his life in November 2013, and not too many people really understood PTSD. Exactly like you said at the beginning, it's kind of something that we're still learning so much about mental health and what all that is and what all of it means, and ways to treat it, or even to treat symptoms. And so I kind of immersed myself into the education side of things, and it all came down to repurposing. Again, this is kind of some transition, repurposing. Finding that purpose that each individual can be passionate about, because really every single person is different when it comes down to what it is that they might want to do after their service. Sometimes people weren't expecting to have to transition, because they will their career ends with TBI or something else that puts them out on a permanent level, and that could be one of the biggest shocks is going from thinking that is your plan to now, like, I have to come up with a plan. And again, sometimes it's too little too late, but the ability to repurpose people by first taking away the worry of having a roof over their head, And this being our veterans, again, the ones that are experiencing the most PTSD typically can't hold down jobs and oftentimes can end up homeless. So what our program does is we'll take them into one of our group homes or whatever other housing that we have available. And their role is to then, basically save their money, whether it be their VA benefits or whatever else, into a permanent housing plan, because we don't charge them anything to be here except through participation. And that participation can be anything that anybody already wants to do anyways, whether it be, for instance, one of our veterans in this group home that I'm sitting at right now does web design. And, he can't, he's got some physical disabilities that prevent him from getting out there and doing some of the hands-on work, building fencing or doing anything like that. So, but he's really passionate about graphic design and things like that. So, we let him immerse himself in that. Not only for himself and whatever side business he does or whatever other companies he wants to help, but for our organization itself, to really help drive us along, because then he's helping pave the way for the people behind him by having everything ready to go and showing what our programs are. Through this community involvement and empowerment, really, by empowering them to do what it is that they truly love, not necessarily just what we need at the time. It really helps them start to thrive in a sense that they really can become part of the community and sort of leave their mark along their journey. For building a sustainable community and building a sustainable program like I wanted to build, and this is all things that I thought would have helped my friend had I had the opportunity and knew what I knew now, all the hindsight, right? Um, um, we we had to come up with a formula that actually was sustainable to do so, and that being mental health sustainability, not only for in every form of sustainability, it's not just the individual but the community, right? So mental health sustainability, financial sustainability, nutritional sustainability, and all those things kind of rolled into one. And by doing that, we even had to come up with again, formulas where some of those can cross over. For instance, financial sustainability and mental health sustainability. We ended up with a wolf sanctuary. It both helps with their mental health by working with emotional support animals. No better support animal for warriors than wolf dogs, in my opinion. Super amazing animals, and by them helping participate in the sanctuary, it also brings in a lot of financial sustainability through the form of donations and tours and other things that have brought people's attention to our cause. That, as well as getting the every single recurring monthly cost eliminated from these communities as we build them, it makes it to where there's no resistance on our path. So every time we build something, it's permanent in the sense that we don't take loans. We build it outright. We buy the land. We hook it up with solar energy, so we never have an electric bill. We get wells so that we're able to pull all of our water straight from the ground beneath us. And again, then and everybody's got a purpose. Everybody's got their own place, their own space, so that if they, whether they need a break from socializing or they need a break from isolation, they're able to get the best of both worlds. But I think one of the most important things about what we do, and again, you guys kind of already touched on this, is that we have this open line of communication within this community. There's by already having the conversation about mental health. For instance, I went and took mental health first aid instructor training and got my certifications and things like that. But we have everybody do it, because by doing so, we have this ongoing mental health conversation that if anybody starts to get kind of led astray or starts to go down to get to a point where they feel like they're hitting some kind of crisis, that we're able to support each other through it, and only a way that an empathetic community can. A lot of people kind of thought that this would be a failed model only because you're taking people with mental health negative mental health, coping skills, and kind of sticking them all in one. But if you have the program and infrastructure, if you create a path of open discussion for them, particularly veterans that don't like to talk about it very much, especially PTSD. But if you create the conversation and they see that they're the odd one out, they absolutely will start to get to the root and the core of what's been ailing them, and then you can really start them on a path of healing. And again, along the way, they get the awesome effects of working with animals and apex predators and things along the way as well, which kind of gives you a different type of healing, a way to get out of your own mind and into the moment of what it is you're doing. That kind of is something that only like really an apex type of animal can do for people. So again, we also work with veterans and civilians that might have severe trauma, that wants to go on these unique experiences to work with these animals, and they come to the community where we house veterans and get that experience. So we're not only our animals hybrids, but our program at its very core is all hybrid. It's all again, we're because we give everybody that open forum to add their personal touch to things. Each veteran gets to add something that they would like to do. It constantly is just getting better and better, and again the positive mental health coping skills have changed since we started till now so tremendously that it's really cool to see what people do to cope rather than with these tools rather than things such as like drugs or alcohol.
Yes. Thank you, Drew. I'm really excited about what you're doing, and I've gotten to have the pleasure of going out and seeing the property, and it's amazing the amount of work they've already done. And animals are, I have wolves and dogs are in my heart. So it's like, and you put that in the mountains and you have me hooked. If I didn't have other stuff going on, I would just come live there and help you.
I've been worried that they were going to start howling when everybody else was talking, so I kept thinking I have to mute my phone. So if you guys are wondering what I was doing, I'm just trying not to get anybody else interrupted.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing what all you're doing. And now I want to introduce Heather to everyone. And I have to tell you a little story because I met Heather, it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. And my husband and I got to go participate in a retreat, which is what she does. And I can't even explain to you the transitions that I saw just in one day. It was unbelievable. And so I'm so excited for her to be here and to tell you what she does. So she is the CEO and founder of Project Sanctuary, and they are changing how military families heal.
Thank you, Deana, for having us all together, and what an honor it is. So Drew, Clint, and Jarrod, thank you so much for your service and your sacrifices. I'm always just so honored that I can work with warriors and their families, and you guys obviously are knocking it out of the park and paying it forward in all sorts of different ways. So honored to be here. I started Project Sanctuary in 2007 as a registered nurse. My background was home care and hospice. And I fundamentally believe that everybody has the right and the ability to heal and get better. And sometimes it's just creating that safe space, that sanctuary, so that they can remember their purpose and what they need and their next steps, and just honoring who they are as that person. A lot of times we don't take times for ourselves to create that, so we can't transition as well. So we help do that. We also believe that the whole military family serves, and the whole military family should heal together. And within doing that, we like to talk about how you can take one veteran fishing and you give him all the tools and support, and he gets all excited and he's got a new lease on life, and he comes back home where it's still baseline chaos. And it's just human nature for him to go back into the same normal routine. But what we do at Project Sanctuary, we take the whole family fishing and give them all the tools and support that they need to support one another and move forward. Our 6-day therapeutic retreats, we hit on a lot of things you guys have already mentioned. So relationships, communication, post-traumatic stress, how to live with it as a family. We've partnered with First Command. We do financial classes. All of our families have a financial advisor available for free after their retreat to help them continue on. We mix recreation with our classes. We have licensed counselors, we have social workers, rec therapists. It's a 6-day, really powerful retreat where we're creating, empowering these families. After that, we continue with the journey through our family support program, whatever they may need. A lot of the things that Deana is doing really, really mirrors what we're talking about. And I believe that within the veteran community, that our veterans are the ones that have the ability to stop the veteran suicide. It's not going to be me, but I can give them the tools so that they feel better prepared to ask those hard questions, to talk to their other veteran friends, to be more aware, to reduce that stigma within themselves, their family, and their community. So it's all about that relationship. And so being a nurse, I want to teach that. I want to teach them how they can have those hard conversations, what they can say, what they can do, because it's all about connectedness, connecting back with self, family, and the community, giving them that purpose so that when they have their battle buddy who commits suicide, I mean, it just rocks everyone to the core. I've watched it. It is just soul crushing to watch a veteran lose one of his battle buddies, knowing that, you know, what else could I have done? How can we save more? How can we stop this? So a lot of what we do after our families come through the retreats, they're welcome back. They can learn to be better peer mentors. They can continue to work with the organization, whatever they need to do so that they feel empowered and they can actually help. Deana, I'm going to dive into the second question.
Okay.
Which is why personally this is important to me. We had a beautiful retreat in Colorado at Winding River Ranch, and really tough veteran came through. He was really struggling. Beautiful family, wife. We continued to follow him after the retreat, provided the resources, offered additional support, and it just simply wasn't enough. And I got the phone call, and Bonnie said, "Miss Heather, we lost Brian. What do I tell the boys?" That is not a phone call I ever want to get again. Through the healing journey with Bonnie and her boys, which we're still very aware of, I learned a lot from Bonnie's grief. And Bonnie's been really amazing at sharing her story and the letter she wrote 1 year post-suicide about how his pain didn't end that day. His pain was just given to the family, and that she was left as a half a person to raise the boys. And when you boil it down to that, and when veterans hear Bonnie speak and they see the ramifications and they see what it does to the spouses and to the kids, and the suicide rates now for the kids are more at risk because their dad took that option. And so I know veterans just want to stop the pain. They, that's all they want to do. They just want the pain to stop, but it doesn't stop. It really doesn't. So whatever we can do to listen, to open the doors, to reduce the stigma, to empower these families, to empower the veterans, that's what we need to do, whether it's through recreation or counseling, or they want to fly model cars or build things or go fishing. I don't care what it is. We have an obligation to make sure we're listening and we're providing that space so that they can help others. So.
Thank you for sharing that. Sorry, I'm all emotional.
I am not sorry.
It's okay.
It is about veteran suicide, and it is tough, and it is about having this conversation. So thank you for allowing us to have this platform today.
Yes. Would any of would Drew, Clint, or Jarrod, would any of you like to answer that same question of why this is such a personal issue to you?
I mean, I unfortunately have. I mean, if you think about this, if we hypothetically say the number's 22, which is the reported number, we have lost exponentially more veterans to suicide than we have the totality of combat and training in the inception of war. And I look at that as a combat loss. I look at it as a combat casualty. And I remember with Carry the Load, when I would walk for Carry the Load, and I still do, and I love the organization very much. I could always see the families of veterans who committed suicide, and they would kind of be in the group, but they would kind of be loitering, and I would go to them, and and you know, I was the founder of the organization that knew who I was, and I'd go, hey, and I said, did you lose your loved one to suicide? And they go, yeah. And there was kind of this apprehensiveness, and I would look at them and go, can I just tell you that I consider that a combat loss? And I consider that more an equally and potentially more hurtful combat loss, because we recognize we're going to lose friends and loved ones over there. Like, that's just part of it. That's war, right? But to lose them when they're here, when they're supposed to be safe, that's for me, that feels like a leadership thing. And you know, Chris Kyle was a dear friend of mine, and he and I used to talk about that. And I was talking to Taya, his wife, the other day, just talking about the thought of losing someone here post-service should be incomprehensible to leaders. And so we have to look at what we're doing and know that to a percentage it's not working. And on the X in a fight, like, you don't stop. Like, you just find a new way to do it because you got to win. And have that same sense of urgency, same sense of creativity, and I mean, the stuff. I have so many friends that have gone to Wind River and they come back, and probably, Heather, we have overlapping relationships that I'm not even aware of. So yeah, I've got those stories. Hey, we lost another one, and you know, we have to do this to figure out what to do next, and to really kind of resource and encourage. I got to believe if you're watching this, then this is a problem you're interested in solving. And so encouraging each other to continue to stay into it, to do one more this, one more that, and remember why we're doing it in the first place is really important.
Yes.
Yeah. I was gonna actually add to that. I mean, because again, it's it is a leadership thing, and unfortunately, there's so much stock, and I know that this probably sounds like a broken record to many, but you know, the inaccessibility to what is supposed to be available to veterans is, I think, one of the biggest insults as well. You know, I know that, and I hate bringing this up, and I hate being the one to kind of throw this out there, but the VA's got some great individuals and some great people, but they don't have a great system. The very system itself has been failing them, especially around mental health. And I you know, I don't mind being the one to say it. You know, and I'd love to share this data with you because, you know, we some of my veterans that are housed here, we put together a video that you know, is basically talking about what it's like when a veteran's in a pit, and you know, when they're trying to climb their way out of a pit, you know, and just the way it feels approaching the VA for help in a situation like that, and that they're just thrown pills, or just, you know, told to do you know, relevant things that don't really get to the root of what it is that they're dealing with. And it's you know, I don't know if it's an accountability thing, if they feel like if they talk about, you know, mental health more, that they're taking accountability for it, but the lack of leadership and the lack of acceptance of accountability for a lot of these symptoms and things are literally killing people. Like, they're literally killing our veterans by not addressing it, by not having these things in place. Again, I could beat down the walls of the VA and tell them what we're doing and how many lives we've saved out here without any help from them. But the cost that it costs us compared to what they spend to get little done in many cases is staggering. I mean, eventually somebody's going to have to look and say, what programs, why are we putting all this money into stuff with results not panning out because it's not panning out. And again, I don't want to say that the VA individuals don't have big hearts, the ones that go into it. That's why they went into it in a lot of cases, and that's why they go for the job, and they want to go in and they think they're going to change something, but they largely can't, because there's already so much bureaucracy in place that they're going to keep taking everything out of a textbook from some other bureaucrat that hasn't lived or experienced what the need is for the situation. So and that's the leadership failure, is so much faith in bureaucracy and so little in action and activity, like the people that are on the call, or doers and sayers.
Yeah, Deana, this is important to me for, not only the fact that I came through a very dark time in my life or something that shouldn't have been dark, but while I was at that assignment and assigned a collateral duty as transition assistance program officer, a former Marine took his life while I was at that command, and I had no idea why at the time, right? And I didn't know this man. I talked to him a couple of times, but whatever challenges he brought with him from active duty into his post-active duty life stayed with him and wound up overcoming him. So that, combined with me being a part of the problem during that assignment, right? The bureaucracy of check the blocks, make sure the admin's done so that these folks can go on with their lives. That was the problem. And to have recognized that this year and to stay quiet about it and not try to share the knowledge that I have acquired myself about what I think is a major problem setting our active duty up for post-service life is a disservice to, one, the people I led in the past, two, the people I'm serving with today, three, my leaders, who all of which are going to get out of service one day. And to continue to wait until 18 to 24 months out to begin these intentional, informed transition preparations would be a travesty. So as a leader, I'm leading.
Thank you, Jarrod, Andrew, and Clint, for your comments. I think what came up for me listening to all of you is that there's a really high percentage of suicides that happen in a 60-second decision. It's not always something that people plan, or, they might have ideation for a long time, but even in my own case, it was a very last minute decision. And that's the hardest part for me, is because we can have the community, we can have the tools, we can have the conversations, but it only takes a minute for someone to be in a bad place and make that decision. And so, I haven't figured out how to fix that, but that's really important. And I hope that I can keep working on it.
I think it's one of the things I think it's the bad decision you don't come back from. There's bad decisions, we all make them. And there's bad decisions you come back from, bad decisions you don't. And but one of the things I love about what we try to do in America's Word Partnership is you try to metric hope. Because despair is the precursor. The absence of hope is despair. And I've got some really, really decorated guys that I get to work with, two guys that fought in Restrepo. And one of the things I tell them is like, hey, if today didn't suck too bad, you give tomorrow a shot. So the trick is to make today not suck. And today can be great. I'd love for today to be great. But as long as the day doesn't suck, you're going to lay your head down and go, all right, I'll give tomorrow a shot, right? And that's it. Trying to create that. And I have a whole language for daily wins and a good day's work because I grew up on a scoreboard. I grew up, as an athlete and being able to look, I get feedback every play as a player on the sidelines in between series, at halftime from my coordinator, my coach at the end of the game. And certainly in the combat profession, you get feedback pretty quickly. And then all of a sudden I'm outputting this effort and not getting. So effort is a ping and outcome is a response. And when you transition in the private sector, those responses are far delayed. and there's a currency and there's a deep wiring issue there, and that when you're sensitized to a particular feedback loop and that feedback loop gets disrupted, then it gets disoriented. And if that goes on long enough, then despair sets in, and despair sets the stage for the bad decision you don't come back from. So disrupting that decline is powerful, and these events, Heather, and that's one of the things that carried the load we did before I retired, and it's like at the end of the day, you have to show us who has the problem before you, who has the problem after you, because we care about the continuum. Like we this is not. I mean, these problems are big. Who's got it before you? Who's got it after you? Because we're, it's kind of like some of y'all are old enough. I don't know if all of y'all are old enough, but this, Hands Across America. I mean, but it was a connected. We everybody held hands across America. It was very literal, right? And imagine doing something like that. And again, I loved your picture of just kind of I've haloed a lot of times, right? And there's times when your shoot's malfunctioning, and the concept of self-stoppage is very appealing. Like, I would really like to stop myself, but I can't. I don't have the ability. I don't have the means. I've got to figure out how to do it. And that's where the net comes in. And the net is, like you said, spreading awareness across all humanity so we can create a better catch net. And that's what, Deep Dive is craving good intelligence to do that. The Commissioned Officer's Guide. I mean, I don't even want to tell you how long it took me to go through my medical stuff. And my medical record looks like a yellow pages. I mean, it's thick, right? And as an inherently impatient person, being capable of enduring the inefficiency of the process, I was like, man, listen, I can go 3 more jobs in the time it takes to sit in this waiting room than is, so, here you are 15 years down the road and you haven't dropped your papers. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it has to be a more agile process. But one thing that fascinates me as a guy, as an entrepreneur, is that the systems that a lot of times we use in the military, and again, Drew, to your point, this is not an absence of heart or desire, or 90% of the people in the VA are trying to do the best they can where they are. But the fact that you can't fire people quickly for being incompetent inside the government apparatus that's a bad deal, man, because pain teaches you lessons, right? And a lot of the systems we use would not survive. If you're a publicly traded company, you couldn't use these processes and systems because your shareholders would revolt and you would be fired and you would breach your fiduciary responsibility and you'd go to jail, a nice jail, but you'd still go to jail. And so we have to have an element of that same ruthless efficiency when it comes to the systems we're asking those who serve to pipe into.
Yeah. And I just, that whole 60-second thing really resonates with me. And one of the things when I used to lead peer mentor groups and listened more, I'm certainly no expert, but I could watch some of the veterans who were in leadership within my organization and take accountability for themselves and know when they were going down that rabbit hole, when they were in that free fall. And they would call and say, Miss Heather, I'm in a free fall. And I'm like, what do we do? And he said, I've already asked my wife to take my guns. I've already called my counselor. I've already called these 2 buddies. I've already done this. So teaching people as they're in that fall and empowering the family and the friends, hey, your battle buddy over here, he's not been doing well, or he's not been showing up. Hey, let's all take him out to lunch if we can anymore. And of course, COVID has amplified all of this. It's amplified the isolation. It's amplified every excuse every veteran wants to give. And so it's up to us just to be more on point, to ask those hard questions, to check in on our friends. And if we need help, to reach out to those that we can trust and say, hey, I'm going to need a little extra time here.
Well, and to create a language, a codex, a lexicon that allows you. I was downstairs yesterday with a couple of our veterans, and I was telling them, what I learned very early as a transitioning athlete and transitioning operator is I got to be around people who get what I don't know how to say until I figure it out, or until I just don't have to say it anymore. And this is where I think the wild things become amazing is you can have a powerful conversation with a wild animal and not even say a word. And they know when you're lying to them. And that's why I think equine therapy and canine therapy and wildlands therapy. But again, to your point, is you got to have diversity. If I said tap, rack, bang to virtually anybody who's ever carried a gun in their hand, they know the precursor to that is a malfunction drill. And we got to have the same type of, are you okay? I'm not. But here's how I articulate that. Here's how I signal that. Here's, I know what happens next, right?
Yeah.
If you look at freediving is really interesting. Like you don't win when you break the service. You win when you break the service as a free diver and you demonstrate a cognitive ability to hold your thumb up and say, "Hey, I'm okay." Like you can pop above the surface, go deeper than anybody else, but if you don't come up right, you lose. And so it's that final 1% of externally acknowledging that I am okay or I'm not okay, and what can I do about it?
Yes. Agreed. And I think, for me, I think that the other important piece that we're not talking about here is addictions. And I know that can be a whole nother conversation by itself. But when you're in that pain and you're using other things to try to make it better, that takes you down the rabbit hole we're talking about as well. Even if, no matter what your situation is, there's a rabbit hole. And I think that for all of us to understand that the signs of that, and the reason I'm saying this is because I have personal experience with it. And if I would have understood what I was doing, and that I was in pain, and that I was drinking to keep the pain away, then I probably would have gotten help before I got to that point. But I didn't understand that. And I know people around me saw it. So it's like, do the people around us also just notice when our behavior changes, like you're all talking about, but that could be a part of it too. And I just want to mention that because I think it's important.
Deana, that's a great point. I'd like to connect that back to what Drew was saying a while ago about all the services that are available, both government and not. And what really took me down this path of the Commissioned Officer's Guide is the fact that there's 45,000 plus free veteran service organizations out there offering services. When we put a veteran in that environment, and then on top of it, we dump on them this big long checklist of things they need to do for transition, where do you go? What do you do first? Right? Where's the guide to help? Right? Where's the team? And I relate this back to every mission, any warfare area from any branch ever went on during our entire service times. We did it on a team. We didn't go it alone. That would have been a suicide mission. So those little missions that we took on throughout service time, year after year, decades after decades, we planned for them on a team. We worked up for them on a team. We executed them on a team. But we're taking this approach to our biggest mission of our military career, transition, and we're tackling it alone with more resources than any of us can ever use, and without a team to help us win. So that's the approach, right? It's assemble your team early, no matter your time in service to date. If you don't have a team yet, build one now. Start building it. Plan, prepare, right? Win that transition battle when it comes. It may come unexpectedly if you get hurt, right? And you have to be medically discharged. Or if you decide, 5 years in that it's not for you. Well, you would have been planning for 5 years, and it's not a surprise, that's coming 7 months later. So we take this idea of the team and what we refer to as the military readiness weapons cycle, right? And we apply it to our individual selves. And the military is not going to do that for us because that's not the military's mission. The military's mission is to go break things and kill people, right? That's what the nation charges us to do, right? And deter against that, if at all possible. That's the goal, not to have to go execute, but to deter against it. But I think we need to apply these concepts that we're so familiar with our weapons platforms to our individual selves, assemble teams around us, with the family, Heather, right? Family teams to approach transition as a unit, right? Not siloed as our own individual family, right? And not only depend on free hand-me-outs from a scarcity mindset, but pay experts to help you go faster, right? My business is a for-profit business at a very, very reasonable rate because I want veterans and active duty to have an abundance mindset, not be strapped by, I don't have enough cash to do what I need to do. We need to get over this. Let's wait 3 hours at IHOP for free pancakes on Veterans Day and Memorial Day, and instead make pancakes ourselves at the house and pay somebody to help us live better lives when we need those services or products. And it's a radical approach to what I've come up in over the last 15 or 20 years, right? But I think it's a necessary one to empower the veteran and empower the military family to live life to the fullest and not live a scarcity mindset of there not being enough. But thanks for that. It's just having access to so many resources, whether it's an addiction we've got or a challenge that we need help with. You also need somebody to help you navigate all those resources so that you can do it efficiently and use your time wisely, because time is our most valuable asset. And I think we lose sight of that in this culture where your time is owned by others for the duration of your military career.
That's very true, Jarrod. Thank you for that point, because I think, I've been learning a lot about mindset this year, because for 30 years I was so busy in a career and owning a business that was the last thing on my mind. And it is true that there's work you can do around your mindset that completely changes your life, or it has in my case anyway. And I think it's, for a long time I thought it was just kind of something people did, and I didn't think I needed it, and I didn't think it was important. And I've changed my mind about that, and I think it is very important. So I would like to ask you all one more question and say, like, if resources were unlimited and you could have whatever you need to be able to help veterans in these situations moving forward, like, what would you need, and what do you think is most important in your organizations to do that? Who wants to go first?
Well,
I don't mind. Go ahead.
All I was going to say is, like, I'll interrupt apologetically only because I've got a hard stop here. But I would ask anybody to listen to go to americaswarriorpartnership.org/deep dive. If you're in a position to feed intelligence and information and data that can be helpful in changing the way we do things and more accurately representing the problems, so we can distribute, what's needed into the communities, because people are like, how do we make that net tighter, that mesh finer, and catch more people in that fall. So I'm grateful for this. This is a great opportunity. I'm sorry to have to leave the call. I'm excited to hear the notes following this as we kind of wrap this thing up. And one of the things I tell people, I learned this very early at the Naval Academy. You got to identify this battle cry, this thing that's just yours. And mine became hold fast and stay true. And hold fast was, when the waves rise against a ship, you got to look for something to hang on to, and you got to hold fast to the things that work, and then you got to stay true to where you said you were going, where the waves came in the first place. And so I just encourage all of y'all to hold fast and stay true. And one of the things I think we all have to recognize is we need to be willing to not see the fruits of our labors, and just know, especially when you're treating invisible scars, you got to be okay not seeing the fruits of your labors, and just trust that it's a worthy mission, and it is. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this. And there's work to be done.
Thank you for being here, Clint. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, Heather, how about you?
Yeah, I'm also with America's Warrior Partnership. There is a lot to be done with collaborating. And Drew, I am so wanting to come hang out with you and see what you're doing. Oh my God, that looks amazing. I've already texted 2 vets and I'm like, look him up, right? He's in Colorado. Holy cow.
I showed them earlier before the rest of you guys came on, but if you actually knew it was on the other side of this railing, you would see that we have our alphas just kind of walking around down there watching us. That's a Cherokee, the alpha female, and Apache's over there laying down by the gate. Anyways, but those are 2 90% plus Arctic timber wolves that they are kind of like, if this was a video game, they'd be like the final boss, you know. It's really cool because they're you have to earn their trust and you have to earn their respect to be able to ever go in the alpha pen. I maybe take a handful of people in there at all. They had to get to know them. They had to earn their respect, and you have to really, really center yourself before you can walk in there, because you have to, think about what to do or what not to do. If he was to do something or they were to do something, because that's their den, that's their home. So again, it's like he was talking about earlier with the animal therapy and equine therapy or canine therapy. In this form of canine therapy, it's much different because there are much different behaviors, and again, it comes from a bond, and it also comes from certain vibrations. And really, if you don't go in there respecting the situation, it's not going to be good. So you can't be in your head about trauma. You can't be in your head about your depression. You can't be in your head. You have to let those things go. And what it does is it starts to condition your brain a little bit towards, not necessarily, you can't make trauma go away. You can't make memories disappear necessarily, but you could definitely, again, practice doing other things, which, leads to more of that rather than more of the focusing on the trauma or other things. It's one of the most amazing things to watch veterans or civilians or people in the mental health field to have the interaction or working their way into the alpha pen or some of the more dominant male pens, because again, you kind of see like this weird decompression when they realize that they're not as in danger as their mind built up before they walked in there. And then they're just like, wait, okay, as long as I respect this animal, they respect me. So then they just focus on that, and again, keeping that center. And somebody that might have been in a crisis depression on arrival, looking like they want to do cartwheels out of this place because of the effect that these animals have. And that's not just like, yesterday's veterans, the ones that just, are still in transition home. There's a Vietnam veteran that was one of the first tours I ever took. It was one of the most amazing experiences for me because that was when I first really, really saw like the medicinal value of everything that we were doing. And he suffers from Agent Orange lung cancer from Vietnam, and he wasn't doing very well. His daughter was setting things up. Her grandchildren were volunteering here, his grandchildren were volunteering here, and so his daughter arranges it with me to do a tour before we were ready. We were still moving wolf dogs over here, and she kept canceling on me, and I'm like, man, what gives? Like, come on, I'm trying to get volunteers out here and get this work done. And then, I realize, oh, okay, like she calls and says, hey, some days he's just not able to even get out of bed. It's so bad. Like, and so I was like, oh, okay. So then I was just like, you know what? Instead of me setting aside a bunch of time, you tell me when you can make it up here with them, and I'll just make it happen that day. So she did. Finally, after like 3 attempts, he was like good to go on a trip out for the day. Comes up here, and I mean, I take him into the first pen. His face was all red. I mean, he looked sick. Like, he looked genuinely sick. And so I open up this door to this cabin, and that's attached to one of our wolf pens, and two wolves just come jumping right into the cabin. And what was incredible was the animals too. They just right to him, right to the guy that we're talking about. There's a whole family in there, but both of them are just like right glued to this guy. And and the one that's head shy, one of our most head shy animals, went through crazy abuse and trauma and everything else. Goes up to this guy and licks his face, which we had been working on him for a couple weeks already, of just like bonding and looking for some kind of affection at all, like, and he's just but very, very head shy. And this guy he's never seen before, this veteran, this hero comes in, and it's like the animals sensed it, and they knew that he needed that. And again, somebody that looked like they were struggling to get out of the car. And was struggling to get up here for 3-4 times. Again, looked like he was going to cartwheel out of here. Like, I was just like, man, somebody stop this guy. He's ready for a night on town, because with everything that he's gone through, and to see that shift. And I'm told for some people, even in the worst of condition, it lasts for days. The effect of this place, and the vibes, and the and the emotion, even the emotional aspect. I mean, people are carrying it with them for some time, and it's been incredible.
It is an incredible place. I can't wait to come back. And
yeah, you guys are welcome, by the way. You other guys,
Awesome.
In the
Thank
area.
you.
We're in the if you ever look up Deckers, Colorado, Deckers, Colorado is about 3.4 miles north of us on Highway 67. It gives you an idea of where we're at on a geographical level. It's a little bit of a drive. We're 45 minutes from anywhere, and that's still about an hour from somewhere.
That's true, but it's all beautiful, and it's like a cathartic experience just to get to you. And then it's an amazing thing. I had huskies for 15 years, and I also spent some time in Alaska and got to study wolves a little bit. So I'm yeah, you know how I feel about wolves. Anyway,
not to forget Gus, though. Gus is the PTSD service German Shepherd that lives here in the group home with the veterans. He's the only non-wolf guard on the spot, but he's PTSD service trained. So yeah, you want to pain on your problems, he likes to listen the most.
That's awesome. So Heather or Jarrod, do you guys have anything you want to say about resources or anything that your organizations need to move forward with your plans, or anything around suicide?
I would just, I'll keep it short because I know we're running out of time, but projectsanctuary.us. And whether you support us or you support Drew or you support Jarrod, I don't care. As long as you're helping military families and you're paying it forward, I don't care. But get involved. Check out these programs. Check us out. See what you can do. See what you can learn so that you can better understand veteran suicide and what's going on. And then you'll know how you can personally help. But we always need volunteers, and we always need people to expand our mission and let other veterans know it's not okay to spiral down. It's not okay to stay stuck in your basement. There are programs out there that work, and there are people that care, and spread that message.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. How about you, Jarrod?
Yeah, I guess from an entrepreneur standpoint, which is what I'm aiming to become, so that I can generate cash flow and then do like Heather say, pay that forward, right, through nonprofits and the like for people that can't afford it. I mean, what I could really use would be a 6-figure grant from somebody out there to pay back office personnel to take care of the business stuff that has to happen for a business. And then I can focus on the message and impacting lives and military families, right? So I'm looking for resources in that arena, because starting a venture like this on active duty is extremely challenging. Like, we have a very demanding workload as well, and doing this on the off hours is challenging. But I recognize that to try to wait and establish or start a business 6 months before you get out of service, that's a bad plan, especially if you don't have, unless you're not already financially free for the most part, right? So that's why I started this early, because I recognize we've got transition all backwards. We're waiting until the back end to start thinking about it on health and status and wealth and building the relationships we're going to need eventually to go out into society and work at a corporation or in government or become entrepreneurs. So I would ask that anybody that's listening today or hears us in the future, that if you've got service members in service, or if you are a service member, that you act now, and then you go take care of our people by prompting them to act. And what we've got in common, veterans and active duty and the families, is transition. We're all going to transition one day. That's the common thread by which to start conversations and assignments. What are you thinking about transition, right?
Yeah.
Again, it comes back to communication, building relationships, right? Let's have fun in this life, because that's what it's here for. That's my ask, Deana. So thank you. And it was a pleasure with the other guests on here. Heather, your comment about the impact on the family is going to carry forward with me forever. That may become a main part of my message, because that is so important. It's so important. The pain doesn't stop; it's transferred to your family.
We include veterans' families when we do the tiny home housing for veterans. If they have a family that needs to come in for the same reasons, so that they can go through it together. The worst thing you'd ever want to do is separate, a loving mother or father that's going through crisis from their loved ones. That just makes things worse. It is a thing that the family should go through together. I agree with you guys both. Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you, Jarrod.
So I think, unless anybody has a last thought. No? Okay.
Thank you, Deana. Wonderful job.
I just want to thank all of you for being here today and having this conversation with me, because obviously I am super passionate about it, but I have not been in the military myself. So I really appreciate all of your input in this conversation. And thank you to the viewers and the future people who will be watching this video. And we really hope it will help you. And I hope you would reach out to any of us if you have questions or you need help. And as we all understand, this year specifically has been very difficult for everyone. The percentage of the humans struggling with mental health this year is unprecedented, and the holiday season is upon us. So please reach out to those that are close to you and have the conversation. Maybe let them know what it looks like when you have a bad day, so they know how to support you when that happens. And hopefully this year, if anything is a blessing out of COVID, it's the fact that I feel like people are talking about mental health more, which will help us get rid of that stigma and help people get the help they need so they don't stay silent and at risk. And with that said, this panel discussion was the start of a series, and we're going to have 2 per month starting in January through April. And we're going to have different topics. In January, we're going to talk to parents, and we're also going to talk to youth. But you can follow our website at realizefoundation.org, or you can also just Google Save a Life Challenge and find us. So I hope you will subscribe, donate if you're able, and join us for the next panel on January 14th. And we wish everyone a happy holiday season, and I pray for all of you to stay safe.
Thank you.